Hello, I'm Ben Schrock, and welcome back to another episode of Unlocking Your Financial Future. And coming back for episode 2, Ben Zeli. Ben, welcome back to the show. Ben is, we know Ben through SBT here in Wadsworth, Small Business Technologies. We just spent episode 1 talking about some of the main phishing scams out there that people might see through their emails. Why people, the cyber criminals do this kind of stuff. What do they benefit from that? And really in part 2, we're going to we'll focus on some things that the average everyday consumer can do to protect themselves from this, some tips that Ben might have for that. Now, again, if you listen to part 1, you might be out there saying, that's all good information, Ben, but, I kind of already know that stuff. I keep good grasp on my passwords. I change them regularly. This is never going to happen to me. I mean, what would you typically do you hear that in your business? Because again, you think I feel like I'm younger. I've grown up with computers. I'm pretty savvy for somewhat. My friends would make fun of me and say I'm not, but I feel pretty confident using a computer and say, I'm good. I don't really need help. It's not going to happen to me.
Yeah. We do hear that a lot. And, we mainly work with businesses. And, unfortunately you do hear that, that'll never happen to me. When it comes to that'll never happen to my business. I'm just, a mom and pop shop.
Sure.
I do X, Y, and Z. I'm not, trading, on the stock market every day. I'm not dealing internationally, stuff like that. And I think that's a pitfall that a lot of business owners can fall into is, that'll never happen to me. I think people are still stuck into thinking, it's 20 some years ago and there's, some guy in a van out in your parking lot with a Pringles can as an antenna,
right,
pointed into your, trying to hack into your stuff. That's not the case. There's not very many instances these days where, you got hacked, there's ransomware, whatever, where it was someone local. It's people all over the world, because when you bring in the internet, you can be anywhere that you want in the world.
Right. And
those guys are way smarter than, some guy with a Pringles can sitting in your, parking lot, like in Wadsworth, for example. And unfortunately, we had a customer, actually not too long ago. It was a new engagement. They said, that'll never happen to me.
Sure.
Something completely out of their control caused it to happen to them. So they're a smaller business. They don't have a server. They store their files on a, it's called a NAS, a network attached storage.
Okay.
So that's just kind of like a fancy hard drive that sits in the corner that gets plugged in with an Ethernet cable.
Gotcha.
And it has smarts in it to let you share files centrally without having a server. Well, that NAS, it ended up having a vulnerability on its web interface. So the whole thing with the NAS is I can be at the office and get my files, or I can be home and get my files.
Right.
Well, when you have that home functionality turned on, that punches a hole through your router or your firewall that lets you do that. That hole that gets punched, it ended up having a critical 10 out of 10 vulnerability. And so that customer that said, this will never happen to me, out of their control, that NAS had a vulnerability get published and it got exploited and all their files got encrypted. And we had to, there's no saving it. So we just had to wipe the entire NAS. Luckily they had a backup of it, but it can never happen to you, but there's forces outside of your control. I'm the greatest driver on the road.
Right.
Well, doesn't mean that I am, and we're sharing the road together.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Interesting. So in those circumstances, it's kind of like, what can you do other than, be proactive, right? You have to have a team like you guys there to help in that situation, right?
Yeah.
Or in advance, right, of that situation. Because even if you have, just because you have a SBT or PCS that's monitoring that, helping that, it still doesn't mean it's bulletproof, right? It's still, it increases your security and helps a ton, but it doesn't mean that someone can't try to hack into your system and go after that.
So if you've seen the movie Shrek, security is like ogres who are like onions. It's all about layers. If you had a castle, you wouldn't just have one guard out,
Right.
with like a sword and a shield or whatever. You would have the moat, the archers, the dragon, all that stuff, guarding, your castle, your house. You wouldn't just lock the front door, you'd lock all the windows and everything. Security is about all that. In this case, this customer, I said they were a new customer. We didn't really do much work for them on that first engagement. I think they got like a new computer or something like that. But their NAS, we didn't even touch. It was out of date on firmware. So this vulnerability had been out actually for a while. But if that NAS had been up to date on firmware, it would have patched that vulnerability. Then this never would have happened. Wow. So like keeping this stuff, like especially that, like I said, it punches that hole in the router or the firewall to let you hit your files from your house, even though it's at work. Keeping that stuff patched and updated that has external access is definitely a huge priority when it comes to avoiding these, they call them 0-day vulnerabilities. 0-day meaning it just launched today. No antivirus has a signature that would, be able to block it or stop it or whatever.
Wow. So in that case, was it a ransomware type thing or just?
Yep. It got on their NAS and it encrypted all their files that had all their customer data on it.
And then they typically reach out to the customer and say, hey, I got all your stuff.
Yeah. So
actually, how it goes?
It's kind of funny. These ransomware groups have the best customer service that you will ever find, even more so than if you called your bank or your actual internet company. Of course you pay the ransom and then if they give you the key to decrypt your files, if that doesn't work, their customer service is non-existent. They already got the money out of you. But when they're trying to get your money, it's like top tier customer service.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so do you guys have you called them and dealt with them directly, or is that like the client has to do that?
No, we don't. Okay. We don't pay or advocate paying ransom. Yeah.
That whole thing's fascinating to me.
Yeah. President Biden, I think March this year, signed in the Cyber Incident Reporting Critical Infrastructure Act. You guys actually fall under it. If you're what's the term? If you're a critical infrastructure, but also like a protected business. Yeah. So critical infrastructure, like First Energy, for example, it's a power company, but also financial institutions such as yourself, healthcare, and then like a few other ones, they fall under I think it's a protected business. I can't quite remember the term, but it's all about reporting. So if one of those entities got ransomware, they have to report that within 72 hours. And if they pay the ransom, they have to report that they paid it within 24.
Wow.
I'm not sure what the repercussions are. They were just signed a few months ago. And I think it doesn't go into play until March 2024. So like 2 years. But like some of because it's kind of the Wild West when it comes to ransomware right now. Like you get ransomware. I'm not going to tell anybody. Right. But now this is actually saying that you have to report it.
You have to report it to like your client base or just to the government?
Definitely the government. I'm not sure about the client base. Yeah. I mean, it'd probably be the right thing to do.
Correct.
You lost all your stuff.
Yeah.
But
probably a hard conversation to have too.
Yeah.
Not one I'd want, but interesting. So now kind of going off that topic, and that's a great story. So, I mean, I guess in summary, just when you think there's nothing there or you don't have any data that's worthwhile or worth stealing, doesn't matter.
These cyber criminals don't care, and that's kind of the thing that small businesses fall into is they are small enough that they think they can fly under the radar, that they think no one will target me, but they're big enough to be able to pay a ransom. Yeah. And then in addition to that, they're also still small enough that something like this could cripple their business and drive them out of business, which does happen. Yeah.
And to me, don't you think that would be low-hanging fruit for someone like that? Because if they're small enough where they're saying, they're not going to pick on me, they're not going to find me, but maybe, profitable enough to make those payments, I'd be like, well, that would be the ideal person to attack, right? Mm-hmm. Is someone that may not have the team around them like you guys they
haven't invested in the IT infrastructure. Right. And that's unfortunately the case with a lot of small businesses. Wow. They start the business, dad, grandpa started it however many years ago. The business grew, IT didn't. Right. And it was really only the last 20 years that IT really started to be as critical as it is now in business. There's not a lot of businesses now where if you take away the internet, that the business can function.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, anywhere. I mean, there's transactions, right? For any business to survive, they need to make money. So there's some sort of transactions, whether it's stored credit card data, whatever it may be. There's something of value that would be, a target for someone that owns a business. So kind of off that topic, Ben, what about when it comes to stuff like, your everyday, client, from a personal level, I guess, individualized, what are some tips that they can do, to avoid passwords getting hacked? People just going into their, whether they're hacking emails, bank accounts, whatever it may be. What are some, tips that you have for password protection and how often to change it, secure it? What kind of is out there for that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, almost the same thing that I said earlier. It would never happen to me, but then there's something outside of your control. That's really the same thing with passwords in the form of data breaches. So the biggest killer with passwords is reuse passwords.
Okay.
I have, just the everyday person has 50 different accounts for different things. They have the bank, the Facebook, the email, the other email. They have their, Facebook, they have Walmart, they have Amazon. Sure. There's so many different accounts that you don't even realize, I have all these accounts. And how do you keep track of this stuff? Do you have a little booklet where you write all your passwords in, but then you're not at home? So where's the book app? You got to sign into something. Okay, I'll just use the same password for everything. Maybe minor variations. Well, we actually saw this with Target a few years ago. Target got data breached, and my Target account is the same. The username is my email,
right? And
the password is the same password that I use for my bank account, my email, my Amazon, whatever. So it's just a matter of time. These data breaches, people hack Target and then they get their whole list of all their usernames and passwords, and then they dump that onto, the dark web. Yeah. And it's available for anyone to go, Target data breach, 17, 18, whatever year it was. Let me just download that. And then they can sift through millions of different, rows of usernames and passwords. And so many people reuse passwords. It's like, hey, my Target password was my email password. Okay, the username is, ben@gmail.com. I'm going to try ben@gmail.com with his Target password. It lets me in. And now I can reset all of his, because whenever you reset a password, it sends your email.
Right.
And, an email, a password reset email.
Jeez.
So how to combat that, people don't like hearing it, but don't use reuse passwords. Right. You mentioned, how often should I change them? It's actually, people aren't recommending to change passwords super frequently anymore, because the problem is people get complacent. I have the password, capital banana, 1. And then I have to change it in 2 weeks because that's my company policy. I do capital banana 2, capital banana 3, and there's a pattern forms. So you really want a long password, preferably a passphrase. So a passphrase is something with spaces in it.
Interesting.
So I give the example, if you have the word password as your password, that's how long it takes to crack it.
Right.
Whether it's a brute force attack or, whatever. If you use like a passphrase, something silly like how now brown cow, that's capital H for how, capital now, capital brown, capital cow, spaces in between. There's tools you can type potential passwords in. It'll tell you how long it'll take to crack. That one takes like 1 trillion years to crack, and it's something silly like how now brown cow. Swap out the O's for zeros, and now we're really talking.
Right.
So the point I'm trying to get to is, I have 50 accounts. How am I going to remember unique passphrases for every single account?
Right.
Probably a lot of people have started to hear this lately, but a password manager. Something that you only need to know one password for. It's the password to get into the password manager. So I get into my password manager, something like LastPass, Bitwarden, Dashlane. These are things where there's apps on your phone. You can get the, the Chrome extension, the Safari
website versions.
$3 a month, whatever.
Yeah.
It's worth it in my opinion. I don't ever have to worry about, a password again. I go to sign into, whatever website, and it goes, oh, this is a website you're signing into. Do you want to add this password into, your password vault? And you say yes. And then you want to go in and reset those accounts and use your password manager to generate something crazy like a 20-character symbols, uppercase, lowercase, letters for a password, and then you set your password to that. Or, you could do a really long passphrase, and then you just let it autofill.
So basically, you connect one of those 3 or 4 that you mentioned with all your passwords in it, and then it just runs everything for you. Like when you go to Amazon, you click in there and it takes care of the rest. It autofills it.
You go to sign into Amazon, and then you can either have it autofill, or what I would recommend is have it for critical systems like bank account and whatnot, have it reprompt your master password for the password manager. Because if I get into your computer and you have a password manager and you're using like the browser extension and it just autofills all your passwords, that's not really helping. I would just get all your passwords. But if you have it set up to reprompt your unlock master password for, the critical systems, email, bank, whatever, then that would really protect
How do you do that?
It's just a setting in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Setting right in your browser?
You go into your password manager, whether it's like LastPass.
Okay.
Go into the, just sign into it all in your phone, browser, Chrome extension, whatever. Go to that bank password, that email password. There's just a setting in there for reprompt.
Okay. So then it clues you back into the password that you had to enter in for that LastPass or whatever service you're using in that situation.
Yeah. And, and people get nervous. Oh, I'm putting all my passwords like in the cloud, for example.
Right.
There are local password managers, something you would install, on your home computer. It's only on that computer.
Okay.
The con to that is you're out and you need to sign into something. You don't have your, 40 character password that you had to generate for you. Cloud password managers are definitely safe. If you lose your master password that you unlock your password manager with, and you call up tech support for like LastPass, they say, sorry, we don't have a copy of that.
Really?
So if they get data breached and all of your passwords get dumped, they're encrypted. So no one can do anything with them.
Got it. Interesting.
Password managers are the way to go.
Give me those 3 again that you mentioned.
LastPass. Dashlane. Bitwarden. Those are kind of the big 3.
Which one do you prefer?
I'm just biased towards LastPass because that's the one that I used.
Okay.
Or use actually. And there's, small business versions of those as well. There's LastPass Teams, for example. It's, X amount per user a month. You're the business owner, you're the administrator, you have all your stuff in there. Your employees can have their own account with their own passwords in there. They can't see each other's. Maybe you have a shared folder because these 2 people in accounting both sign into this website, or HR. They can have access to the HR, passwords, the accounting passwords. And if you have that employee that leaves and, they set up, whatever service to recur, every month, and it needs to be renewed annually for you, they leave, you get rid of their email address, and then that thing never gets renewed.
Yeah.
You're like, well, what was the password? You can just check their password vault and say, oh, okay,
gotcha.
This was the password for that.
You just got to really remember that password for the LastPass, right?
Yeah.
That's the key.
That's okay. I mean, if you forget that one, you can hit reset password.
Okay.
It'll email you.
Awesome. What else with passwords or other steps? Because again, I look at it as the average, again, guilty of that. I try to change passwords or make them different. But you fall into a trap where like, okay, I can only remember so much.
Yeah.
And you repeat, do different things, little changes in there. But I mean, quite frankly, the average person probably just doesn't want that extra step of LastPass, right? I mean, I don't. I'm too lazy. I just want to autofill and be done.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else they can do outside of that to get extra protection or another step they can do?
Yeah. So you're talking about two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication is what it's sometimes referred to as. So that is, I have Something I know and something I have. I know my password and I have my phone, which gets a text message to me. So pretty much probably everyone's used some form of two-factor authentication. Most banks require it now. They force it on you.
Yep.
Apple forces it on you with the Apple ID. So you go to sign in with your username and password, and then you get like a code texted to you. And then you enter in that 6-digit code. It's only good one time. It's a one-time password. That looks different ways. So there's there's text message with SMS. You get the code texted to you, or there's also like an authenticator app.
Okay.
So the authenticator app is I'm not getting a code texted to me. When I sign up, when I turn on two-factor authentication for my email or whatever, I have to download an app.
Yep.
Something like Authy or Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator. I scan in a QR code on my phone, and then it puts a revolving one-time password in there that changes every 30 seconds.
Huh.
So I go to sign in with my username and password. It wants a code. I fish out my phone, open up my Authenticator app, and I type in what that code is at that specific moment in time. That is more secure than the text message. Text message is definitely great, and it's way better than nothing, because if I know your username and password for something, great. I can't sign in unless I have that text message that's sent to you. The problem is people can call up your phone company, Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, whatever, pretend to be you. They look on your Facebook page, you filled out that survey, of 30 questions, if here's like my Hogwarts house, like what it'll be. And it asks you all these personal questions that you don't realize, like, oh, what's the street name you grew up on, like this and that. I answer those security questions, mother's maiden name.
Yeah.
I pretend to be you. Hey, I got a new number, or hey, I got a new SIM card actually. Send my number on my old phone to my new phone with this new SIM card. Now I know your username and password, and I get your code texted to me.
Right.
It's hard to do that. Authenticator app, there's no SIM card, text message. It's literally you need to have this phone to get in.
The only thing that can get you in.
Yeah. I have your username and password. I had your phone number rerouted to my phone, but I don't have that authenticator app that's on your phone.
Interesting. I know I've worked with a company that I think they did something. It was with an app. Actually, it's a FINRA site, I think, that they do a two-step. I had to open up the app, and as long as my phone's close in proximity to my computer, it'll come up and say I have to press allow on here to connect me through there. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Again, it's a pain, but it works, and I mean that's the idea behind it, is to make it everything more secure and so you don't run into those traps. Is there? I mean, different. Obviously, there's going to be different types of, criminals, cyber criminals that go after the consumer versus businesses. I mean, is there still ransomware out there for the individuals, or not as much?
Yep. Yeah. Click on whatever email, this and that, and at that point, usually for businesses, they like to sit on your network for weeks at a time to learn your network, see where the backups are, see where your server is with all your files. So I'm going to launch ransomware. I'm going to encrypt your backups too.
Gotcha.
That way you have to pay the ransom and you can't restore. But for individuals, usually it's just instant. I click on this, something downloads and runs right then and there, and your hard drive gets encrypted. You get the screen takeover that says, your files have been encrypted, pay X amount of Bitcoin, to this Bitcoin wallet. And like I said, they have excellent customer service. They can walk, someone's grandma through opening up a Bitcoin wallet and how to put money on it. Jeez. Or buy Bitcoin and transfer. So yeah, I mean, it definitely still happens to individuals.
Wow. And they're always using Bitcoin?
It's always Bitcoin. Yeah.
You can't trace it.
It's either Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Interesting.
But yeah, if it's not ransomware for individuals, it's usually some type of gift card scam.
Yeah.
Where they try to get you to buy, whatever. I worked at Office Max when I was in college, and we had a gift card rack.
Yeah.
And you would see normal looking people, a mom of 3 or whatever, come in glued to the phone, looking frantic, and they go straight to the gift cards and they get as many Visa gift cards as they can, and they try to put the limit on it. They try to buy like $1,000 in Visa gift cards, and you try to talk to them, like, hey, like, what's going on? And they don't want to hear it.
Sure.
My husband got, he's at the sheriff's department, he's in jail, they need this and that. And it's like, it's a scam. And, it's a sensitive subject to talk to talk to people about.
Wow. Well, I know that's been very beneficial. Anything else to add in terms of ways that I know you can go on and on, but easy things that consumers can do to protect certain, private things like their, their logins and things like that?
Yeah, just, get a password manager, turn on two-factor authentication, because even if I have your password, I don't have your code.
Does everything allow two-factor authentication?
It's getting a lot better.
Okay.
If you even look back just 2 years, there would be even a lot of bank accounts that didn't even support it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like, well.
What about when it clicks like, remember this device? Is that safe to do? Because then it doesn't ask you for that two-step, or don't ask me again.
Yeah. It's subjective.
Okay.
I personally don't do remember my device.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of have to, just because of the position that I have. But it's not the end of the world if you do. It's a lot harder for someone to get remote access to your computer.
Yeah.
If someone has remote access to your computer, you let them. Whether they scam called you saying they were Microsoft, or you clicked on a link or whatever. Mm-hmm. You pretty much know if someone has access to your computer.
Gotcha.
So like I said, it's not the end of the world if you personally on your personal home device click "Don't ask me again."
Right.
But it's it's a good feature to have, because if I do get your password from like a data breach and I'm signing in from wherever, I'm gonna get hit with a two-factor code. So if you ever receive like a random text message with a 6-digit code, it's either a scam or someone actually tried to sign in, and you should probably go reset that password.
Gotcha. That's good advice too. So in other words, don't be lazy. Just don't auto save the passwords. Get the password manager, two-step it. Take the extra, 20, 30 seconds to...
Yeah, and I mean, you feel good about it when it's all said and done. I remember years ago, I got an email saying someone signed into my Fitbit account from like an IP address that was unknown. And it was in like the middle of the night. I had my phone, I wake up, look at it. I'm like, what the heck? And so, I reset my Fitbit password, and it let me turn on two-factor authentication. And then that kind of drove me down, like the path with a password manager.
Sure.
That's really what sparked it, was like a 2 a.m. email from Fitbit.
Well, hopefully don't have any more of those.
Hopefully not.
So, well, Ben, I appreciate the time. We'll wrap things up. I got a little bit long-winded here. I really appreciate that. So like I said the first time, if anyone has questions for Ben, his team, and the whole group over there, I know there's multiple businesses within the family of companies. So any questions, feel free to reach out to our firm. We can connect you guys with the right party. Whether you're a small business, big business, or an individual, we can make the connection and help you guys out and give you the introduction to Ben and his team over there. And our office number is 330-473-1060. You can always email the office as well at info@BASchrock-FG.com. So, Ben, thanks again for the time. Really appreciate it and all your knowledge. And we'll have to get you back soon and quiz you some more.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.